Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Here.
Commissioner Breitling?
Here.
Commissioner Peterson?
I'm here.
Commissioner Steen?
Here.
Commissioner Capitan?
Here. Present. With that, Taylor, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Taylor. First item, to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Any questions, comments, or a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All same sign. Minutes are approved. Order of the agenda. You all had a chance to take a look at the agenda. Taylor, is there any changes that I should be aware of?
Nope.
Changes to the agenda. Any comments, changes, or additions to the agenda? Commissioner Peterson.
Motion to approve is presented.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
A second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of order of the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign. Order of the agenda has been approved. Approval of the consent agenda. Any questions, comments on the consent agenda, Commissioner Sherling?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Capitan?
Aye.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
The agenda has been approved. Moving on to public comment. We actually have a couple of individuals who would like to address the commission this afternoon. Those people with the carbon pipeline, you're on the agenda, so you don't have to address this at this point. It'll be during your period. So with that, we have Carol. If you'd introduce yourself, who you represent, and
Sure. My name is Carol Sawicki. I'm a resident of Fargo. I'm representing the League of Women Voters of North Dakota and Red River Valley. And the League of Women Voters has something called Observer Corps, which means we come and observe. We come to different meetings and sit and observe. And I'm planning on coming to county commission meetings, especially ones where there's something about elections, because that's our bailiwick. And I just want you guys to see who I am and why I'm here.
all right.
Okay.
Any questions for Carol? Oh, right on.
Okay.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I have an Adrian Kiefer. I got that wrong, correct me?
You got it correct.
All right.
I'm
Come up
Adrian
to, come up to, here, introduce yourself here so we get you on tape.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Adrian Kiefer. I represent the Castleton Ambulance. I'm a board member. And I just wanted to come here to notify you that we are going around with a petition to create a tax district for our ambulance district to raise 6 mills to basically keep our head above water because we're going broke. What's unique about our ambulance is we are an ALS unit. We provide paramedic support, and that's the majority of our expenses, hiring paramedics, which essentially is anything they would do in the back of in the ER, they can do in the back of that ambulance for our patients. And we want to keep that intact and continue on. And we do get money from the county, and I appreciate that very much, and please keep it coming. So if there's any questions.
I have a question. What would be your tax district area?
Our tax, basically it's at Castleton, we go east to Mapleton. We go north almost to County Road 4. We're a half mile south of County Road 4. Hunter Ambulance carries from there north. And then we go west pretty much out to Barnes County. South, there's a little chunk that Kindred Ambulance covers over Leonard. And then it's Highway 46 all the way to Anderlin. We do a lot of mutual aids because other ambulance don't have an ALS unit, so we intercept with other ambulances that don't have that. So that's another thing that we provide. We're on track now to be just under 400 runs this year. So we are very busy. About a quarter to a third of our runs are what we call no pays because they don't have insurance. So, but we're never going to refuse help to anyone.
Any questions for Mr. Kiefer? Just curious. Go ahead.
When do you expect this to be voted on?
This will hopefully be on the November 8th ballot, and next July we would submit a budget, and then from that budget, the taxation would take hold. We'd have hopefully money in 2024. and we've got just enough money, I think we can make it.
How much do you expect like the 6 mills to raise?
In
on
our
an annual
district, it
basis?
should be about $300,000 is what it'll raise. The state law allows us to tax up to 15 mills, but I have fear, I mean, we could use all the money we can get, but I wouldn't think it would pass at that level. But 6 mills we thought would be a nice number. It'll help us eventually buy a new ambulance. Our newest one is a 2012. And our oldest one is a 98. So it's to keep upgrades going and keep us afloat. The 300,000 should do a good job. One thing that did happen with the state legislature is they shut off funding for ambulance districts that their taxable value was higher. So like 5 years ago, we used to get about 80,000 a year from the state, and they shut that off. They just had a new model that went through in an omnibus. I've talked to our state legislatures in our district, and I'm just trying to spread the word that, hey, if you can fix that, there's a lot of ambulances statewide that are hurting.
Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you get me, so Chad Peterson, County Commissioner, can you get me whatever info you have regarding that piece of legislation that you're looking at? I'm pretty active in Bismarck.
Oh,
And
sure.
I've got friends that are running, and they're running unopposed. I think the elections are, for the most part, done, right? So we had the
Yep.
primaries, and we like it or not, that's the way we are. So whatever information you can give me, please share.
Absolutely.
And any educational tidbits you can pass along to, convey via email or call or text me or email me.
Yeah, and my phone number's on there too, so it's,
Okay.
we can stay in touch.
Oh, perfect, okay. Yeah, whatever information you can give me, the better.
Will do.
Any additional questions for Mr. Kiefer? Right, thank you.
Thank you so much for your support and your time.
Absolutely. Any other public comment who had not signed up? Seeing none, we'll move on to the regular agenda. First item on the agenda is the Fargo tax incentive for Roosevelt Family Lofts LLC. Mr. Gilmore will present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This letter got to you a little sooner than we usually like to send it because we know you like to act after the city commission. The earliest city commission agenda, it'll be on the August 22nd agenda. I know the planning department has some concerns, so there could even be a further delay. I do want to make sure that you have the correct financials. Those were sent out. The wrong ones went out with the agenda, and then the PFM report wasn't in your agenda. We didn't have that.
Now, just for Mr. Gilmore, give me a second. I think Taylor handed out the new information to everybody. Should have it at your seat. If you didn't, if you got it in your email, but if you didn't, pick it up. It's also in front of you.
Anyway, it's a 13-unit townhome project. The request is for a 10-year property tax exemption with the first 5 years at 100% and the second 5 years at 50%. And so I know you like to wait until after the city commission agenda, so I didn't invite the developer here, and I expected you'll probably defer action until after whenever we act on it. So if you want to do the motion where you're going to negotiate, I'd be comfortable with that.
You know us too well, Jim.
Yeah. And
Any
hopefully we'll
questions,
get
though,
some.
but before we get to that motion, any questions for Jim on this one? Because I have not personally had time to look at it.
Yeah.
We had budget last week, so Commissioner Sherlin.
Thank you. So I'm just curious if you have the support of the Roosevelt Neighborhood Association for this one?
Yeah, we really don't know. I guess not, but I don't really know. It's a vacant lot though, and it's not a huge, redevelopment. Generally, the city's policies are to support infill development. It's a vacant lot. It used to have a dangerous building. However, I know the neighborhood prefers more ownership activities, and so there will be meetings set up with the neighborhood prior to it getting to city commission.
Well, I know that they're also very concerned about their neighborhood schools, and this is called the Roosevelt Family Lofts. So is it supposed to be geared towards families?
Yeah, it'll be 3-bedroom apartments, so those tend to be are more likely to have kids. If you look at the townhomes that were constructed to the east, that's a mix of students and young families. So certainly will have more kids than it has now.
Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. Yeah, and the site plan shows a little playground, some little community areas. I had done some research on this, so I'd guess the ownership group adjacent is the same ownership group.
It's a similar group. I think there's some overlap, but not 100% overlap.
Okay, and the one thing that concerns me is incentivization of townhomes, which I get infill's a thing, but townhomes are being built all over the city, so it's a struggle, I think, in their supplementation of them. But the one question I have for you, sir, and I know you probably don't have this in front of you, but if you do, their sheet they submitted shows a loss of 18,000, 16,000, and progressively gets less over a period of time. Even with, I'm presuming this includes all the incentives. So how's the city viewed, and again, we're probably negotiation, just asking you, if you don't know, that's fine. Investing, basically we are, investing in a property that we know is gonna lose money.
Well, I think our consultant thought it was going to be, I think, a 7% rate of return with, I mean, it may not cash flow very well, but it's in 10 years, it'll be worth more than it was in. So yeah, they're gonna barely make their coverage ratio for that first 10 years.
Yeah, that's the thing that confused me the most, is we're showing a net loss, but they're showing an ROI of 6 or 6.1 or something, I can't remember what it was. Other questions I had. Relative to the valuation of these units, is this going to impact, so there's a couple, I'm thinking there's 13 units, but there's a couple spots in here where it said 12. It's 13,
It's
right?
13, that's the
Yeah.
correct number.
Okay, I'm guessing they probably use the same format, I don't know, either way.
Yeah.
Guessing the same plans as the adjacent property, but the valuation of these townhomes, how much will that impact this property that's probably the exact same floor plans, exact same layouts next door? Is that going to increase the valuation of that? Because that could help me defend it. If we've got, they're right now currently assessed at $150,000, like $150,200 next door.
Yeah.
And these are going to be valued at $250,000 plus. Well, if the city, I know this puts you in an awful spot, is going to assess those at $250,000 next door based on this valuation, well, hey, that's another $12,000 a year in gross income for all of us. Are you aware of any revaluation to match the valuation proposed here?
I mean, I know the city assessors looked at reevaluation of apartments, and as rents go up, they'll evaluate those. But you're right, they'll look at the ones next door, and so they'll probably value them very similar if they are similar units. I don't know if the ones next door are 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, I'm not sure.
Okay, and I couldn't tell you. All we've got is that rough schematic site plan, so
Yeah.
I don't know. All I did was GIS and Google Earth, so I just presumed they're similar, but I can't.
Yeah, I didn't look at the square footage to see if that was any different, so we can have that kind of information for you when you act on it.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sherlin?
One other question, did this project have full support of the planning commission?
It complies with the existing ordinance, land development code, so they could go get a building permit and presumably build this today. They could also go get a building permit and put up a 15-unit apartment building. It's zoned for multiple residential, so it hasn't gone to the planning commission, or did not go.
Okay, great, thank you.
So just a thought would be, the date of the letter I received is July 21st. We have until August 21st to make any type of decision on this. Our next meeting falls before that. And because this is new, I mean, Commissioner Peterson, you had a lot of questions. And I haven't looked at it, but go ahead.
Is this UMU zoning? Or what is this?
No, it's a MR3, multifamily, multi-residential 3.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
We may want to, just a thought, because we're not required to at this point, and just got the information, we may want to table any action on this at this meeting and just postpone it till the next meeting, which will be on the 15th. Is that all right? So,
That would keep us in line with our,
yes. Yep, we need to respond within 30 days. That would give us to August 21st. Correct, Jim?
Yeah.
do you need a motion to table? I would take, do that.
Second. Motion is second to table any action on this item. Any questions, discussion on the motion? What's that?
It's just a voice vote, no discussion on table.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign. We'll table that and hopefully come back on the next meeting with the developer. We will have probably some better questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
All right. Moving on to item number 2. Summit Carbon Solutions, they're here to make a presentation, I believe, correct? So whoever needs to introduce yourselves and
Name's Joey Barachi. I'm with Turnkey Logistics. I'm here representing Summit Carbon Solutions. And here today to give the first of our quarterly project updates. And then when I'm through with that, I want to introduce you to Charlie Adams. He's our new manager of agricultural and stakeholder relations, and he'll just introduce himself. On the first page, I know you guys already have a map, but it changed just ever so slightly. The last map was 21.94 miles. They had a cultural site that they had to go around, so it's now at 22 miles. So it increased just slightly. On page 2, in North Dakota, we have over 115 miles that is signed up. That's over 188 landowners and over 309 agreements executed. So we're standing right now at about 33.96% in North Dakota. For Cass County, we have 3.83 miles signed up at 17.63%. That number should go up pretty good now that the reroute has been taken care of. On the last page, there's a company called Ernst & Young, and they did an economic impact study. So let me just run through some numbers real quick. During the construction phase, total investment is $898 million, $61 million in taxes, total labor income $392 million, average wage of employees is $67,000. During the operations phase, and this is all in North Dakota, operations phase, it's $18 million in annual expenditures, state and local taxes, $8 million, average wage of employee, over $94,000. Specifically for Cass County, we are, total investment is going to be over $75 million, and new property annual taxes are going to be $433,851. Let's see. The last time I was here, I believe we mentioned the community outreach, where Summit wants to invest into the community. Let me give you some examples of what we've already invested in and some upcoming ones. We have some sponsorship in NDSU Golf Tournament, Mandan Rodeo Days, Mercer County Fair, and Red Hawks Baseball. So we're a sponsor for them on a yearly basis. Coming up, we have Morton County Fair, Oliver County Fair, Cole Country Classic Golf Tournament, items like that. So again, if you come up with something, please let us know. You have my contact information, and I'll be glad to present that up to Summit.
Okay,
And that's,
Commissioner Sherling.
I'm wondering what percentage of easements have gotten signed in Cass County?
Cass County, that is, Cass County is 17.63%, which equals 3.83 miles.
And what kind of a timeline are you looking
To start construction?
Well, to get all
Get-
those easements?
Well, like I said, it was either environmental or cultural site that they had to navigate, and they finally got a route through there. So now they know this route is set, they can proceed, but it's impossible to
I mean,
get
is
in.
is your goal to have it in 1 year or 5 years? I just have no
All of those.
vision for how long this process is anticipated.
The sooner the better.
Right, of course. Hey, I'm involved in that too, so.
Yeah, sooner the better. And I know they're still planning on starting construction summer of '23. Now, where that starts, we just don't know yet. It depends on the permitting process.
And how many parcels in Cass County are involved?
I don't have that total, but I do, mileage is 22 miles, and we have 3.83 of that signed up.
Great, thanks.
You bet.
Any other questions for Joey? Do you want to introduce Charlie at all, or just, he's in the audience and we'll say hi and,
You bet. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Charlie Adams. I was just hired on. I've been 2 weeks on the job with Summit Carbon Solutions. I work for Summit Carbon Solutions directly as like Joey said, the manager of agriculture and stakeholder relations. My job is going to do outreach and build relationships with the agriculture community, specifically farmers and those kind of organizations and local government leaders such as yourself. So, as I get my feet wet and things like that, I hope to be a resource for you and for your constituents on any kind of questions that you have. Also, I plan on being on the ground at a lot of the community outreach events that Joey talked about, and I'll be seeking out more events and things like that too. So if you have any suggestions on where we can help out in the community, please feel free to reach out to me. I believe that Joey included a copy of my card in your packets there. So thank you very much. Nice to
Any
meet you.
questions
Thanks for
for
your time.
Mr. Adams? Mr.
One
Sherlin?
more question, and perhaps it's, I'm not sure which one it's for, but just curious, how long this build is supposed to take? You said hopefully start next year. How many years does it take?
Barring any complications, probably one season,
Okay.
maybe 1.5. It's hard to predict the weather. There may be some cleanup stuff that needs to be done because we're going to have several crews at different areas. And again, it depends on the permitting process also.
Right. Okay, great.
Yep.
Mr. Peterson? Wait.
Mr. Adams, is it?
Yes, sir.
So Charlie, I'm trying to place you. So he was a county commissioner. I've known Charlie since he was young. His dad and my dad served in the Senate together. So Charlie, share some of your, local government experience. You were involved in NDACO, so give us a bit of your background, please.
Yeah,
My peers don't.
absolutely. Thank you. So my background is agriculture. The last 8 years I've been, I grew up on the farm in Lansford, North Dakota, north of Minot, and the last 8
I
years.
drove one of his dad's combines when I was little. Sorry.
Yeah, the last 8 years I've been the general manager of Hefty Seed Company in Mohall, so advising farmers on their crop protection needs there, managing agronomists. And also I was on the Bottle County Commission for 6 years, so I recognize a few of you from the Association of Counties events. And we're going to be sponsoring the conference coming up actually in October as well. So I look forward to seeing you there at the, at the booth for Summit Carbon Solutions there. So
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
And same thing, if you guys have questions for us, you know my number. I got my home phone, so call me whenever you want.
will do. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, I'm assuming Tom, you'll present in place of Jason on concrete box culverts. Exciting stuff.
All right. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'll be presenting here for Jason, I guess. But basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get ahead of the game here with our 2023 projects. So we did a little investigation and we're just getting some preliminary costs and that kind of thing and talking to our suppliers, and they told us you may want to order your box culverts this year to get them in time for next year. And the timeline for next year, the work that's being done at County Road 17 on that large box culvert and out in Clifton Township, these are the 2 bigger box culverts we have for next year. So we put together an RFP and we had sent that out to the 2 suppliers, and then the results are what we got back. I think we should back up a little bit, I guess, but the one on County Road 17, we actually did look to see, do you put a bridge in there or do you put a box culvert in there? But to widen that out, and the road's gonna get lowered, so basically that bridge would almost be taken down to, basically almost have to dismantle the bridge, so. And to put a box culvert in there next year, wide enough for when 5 lanes come through, potentially 5 lanes on County Road 17 or Cheyenne Street, or whatever it's gonna be, going to Horace, the cheaper option is definitely to put a box culvert in, which is, to buy the box, right now it's at 2.4 million. A bridge would be around $4 million to put a bridge in, 5-lane bridge with a bike path on that side. So we opted to go with the box culvert. One of the reasons that the engineer's estimate is a little bit low is probably my fault, because actually the prior size other box culverts, the one on 64th Avenue and one on 40th, are actually 14 by 16. And that was kind of the preliminary number that I had in there. I should have updated that, I guess, but they told us we need to go 14 by 17 because we need to sink the box in a foot into the channel for fish passage and these other issues. So that's part of the reason it is slightly higher. Normally what we do, we have the contractor buy these boxes and then they supply them and they install them. But to stay on our timeline and to keep our projects moving forward, that's why we opted to go with us buying the box and to have it ready. And these they build them outside, so they got to do them this fall or early spring. And pretty soon it'll be snowing and they don't have the ability to build these size box culverts indoors. So that's part of the reason too, that the more time they had to build them, the better. So that's what we did is we sent out this RFP for these 2 box culverts, and we actually have more coming. The rest of them, all the ones that our forces will install, and the remainder of the contractor ones, they're all. We're going to get another round of these because we know that if we don't order them now, we may not get them in time for next year, just in the world that we're in today. So I believe all the paperwork we have for the 2 are included except for Terra. They're still working on the agreement that needs to be signed, and that they weren't able to get that in time. So if there would be if the motion is okay, I guess as upon receipt of that agreement, that it could be signed, I guess. So, but we're just trying to stay proactive and stay ahead of the game, and so we can keep our contractors moving forward, I guess. So for next year, I guess if there is a silver lining somewhat to it, I guess if what you call it that, but we're buying the box in this case, or a contractor buys them. But if we buy it, we're not paying sales tax. Contractor does, he pays sales tax. But it's hard to say if they get a better deal than us, over time. So there could be some savings there. So if, the contractor built it, there could possibly be a bigger number than that next year, I guess. It's really hard to tell, so.
Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to authorize chairperson to sign the purchase orders and quotes from Old Castle Infrastructure, Inc. and for Terra Pipe and Precast.
There was maybe some questions, so I'm not sure exactly if your motion came a little bit too early on that. So you may not get a second off the bat.
Get a second just for discussion.
It has to be on the motion then, so we got maybe some other at least I have other questions.
Okay.
So, okay, that motion dies for lack of a second. Questions, Commissioner Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I realize you're in a tough spot here. How genuinely confident, clearly you're confident, but I want to get some reinforcement on this. How confident are you that things are not going to slow down to the extent where we won't be able to get anything 8 months from now?
Mr. Peterson, members of the board, definitely is, like I say, the world that we're in, it's difficult to say, but we feel this is the best option, that we need to pursue this in order to keep our projects on track for next year. And like I say, that number is higher than we had thought, and like I say, the box was bigger, I guess, but it's our best guess, and it's probably I would say our safest path forward here for us to keep moving forward.
Okay, and then we're $500,000 over budget. How does that impact your budget going forward? It's a big number.
Yeah, in all those projects down in that corner there, I think it's actually all those together are $6 million. So this is just the box itself, just so the rest of it is
We still have to
everything
find
together.
$500,000 somewhere
Yeah,
that wasn't
right.
budgeted. How does that impact
Yeah.
your budget?
We still do have cushion in there for that, so, because next year we do have we're carrying over 18% next year as of now. So we do have a little cushion in there for that, so that's part of the reason we did carry over more, Jason, when we wanted to go 18%. We things like this, and just the world that we're in, it's really getting difficult for some of these prices for asphalt and concrete and all these materials, so.
Mr. Chairman, one more.
Yes, go.
Thank you. And then I see we have 2 bidders. One didn't even bid on one.
Yes.
I know there's limitations regarding scale. So once a widget gets so big, only some people can manufacture said widget.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else that you could have engaged?
These were the
'Cause
two
we did an
guys.
RFP, right? And
Yes, we did.
that's all that showed up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we
Okay.
did, and they said they would, when we did talk to those guys, they could do the smaller one, but they said, we're not even gonna put a bid on the other one because there's no way we'd be able to do those two large box culverts plus other work that we have come in, so this is a very large box culvert.
That's
It's
what- yeah.
14 by 17.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I had
Thank you.
two questions, one very similar to Commissioner Peterson's. So how does this impact your overall 23 budget? I know you've got carryover, but carryover in the budget or carryover of funds? Because are we gonna be looking at probably making some budget adjustments for 23? Because if these rates continue, I'm assuming the budget currently in place for 23 doesn't cover this type of increase. I'm just assuming that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I guess, I would say my personal opinion would be that these structures, these two larger box culverts would probably be the wild card or the one that might be the one that might sway us more than any other projects that we have coming. So that's why we wanted to do these first. So hopefully this is worst case scenario and we know we had the cushion of 18%, well, 8% really, for next year. So we feel that we're okay moving forward.
So you don't have anything of comparable size in 23's budget compared to these two?
Right,
This is the
Yeah.
behemoths of your.
correct.
I've
Yes,
never looked at or seen a box culvert being priced out at this range.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of box culverts in 8 years, but this is like
yeah, yeah,
that's
right.
a lot.
Big.
The last one we installed, Mr. Chair, was on 64th Avenue, just west of County Road 17 in 2005. And that one was at about $1 million. So since 2005, we're at where we're at now for just the box. And that one basically had a little bit of gravel and asphalt over the top of it and some grading. But most time these box culverts, that is 80% or more of the cost of the structure is the box culvert itself. So.
Commissioner Sherlin,
So how confident are we that this is going to be adequate? MetroCog's forecasts, numbers, everything, 5 lanes and a bike lane, this is gonna cover it for a long, long time? I mean, that's a busy road, and you know,
Right.
if you build it, they will come.
Yes, yep, and I guess just with all the work that's been done with MetroCog and also the road that we built now on 45th Street, that'll take some of the pressure off of the Cheyenne Street. Some of those reliever roads, at 64th Avenue, they'll be able to go east, and 76th Avenue, they'll be able to go east, so that'll definitely help, because I believe West Fargo, right now, they only have, I don't think they even have a 4-lane section planned for 52nd Avenue up to 40th, so based on their recent studies, so I would say we would get, I mean, to me, I guess that's, you really can't go any further west than the diversion, and, you know, and with the reliever routes going east, I think the 5-lane section, I personally feel that it's gonna serve that area for,
And where's the one
Next
in
30
Clifton
some years.
Township? Which one is that?
oh, sorry, excuse me?
The Clifton Township?
Okay, that's it's in just west of Alice. So this bridge is about 4 miles west of Alice and about 2 miles north. There's a bridge currently in there right now. It's a bridge on a curve, and it was actually in this case would be cheaper to put the bridge in a large. That box culvert will actually be 4 lines of 14 by 11, as opposed to putting a bridge in there. So these are, like say, they're the 2 larger box culverts that we have in the county, and they'll be the bigger tickets or the bigger impact as far as price.
And then we got the one in Reed.
Sorry?
And then there's the one in Reed that is kind of the emergency one.
Yes. Yeah, so that the next round of box culverts we have coming it will be the balance of all of them, so. And hopefully those numbers will be closer to our estimates here, so.
Great, thanks.
and then one last question I have, and so neither of these, I understand the second one, but the first one has nothing to do with the diversion as far as.
Right, if the
Impacting-
diversion never got built, that's the size that would still be there, and that's the size that
Okay.
needs to be put in there,
All right.
yeah.
Commissioner Peterson.
Sure, thank When do we anticipate delivery of these? Are we planning for them to be next spring and they'll manufacture them this summer, fall, probably fall, or probably, I mean, I'd go late fall, and then have them on site there, and then they'll deliver them?
Yeah, typically what I'd like to do is, Commissioner Peterson, is to have they like to build them, and then they schedule when the contractor is ready to install them, so then they start shipping them. And and these things, they basically haul one of these on a truck. So there's gonna be a lot
$100,000
of loads,
worth.
there'll be hundreds of loads be coming up to this area with these things. So last time they've had them, you can lay them down or else they'll be standing up and they just chain down. You have one section on the semi. So there'd be a lot of loads. So they have to time that. So they'll be like, they might get like 15, 20 loads a day. So if they get all the truckers lined up, and that's what happens with our guys, when we install them, they'll have like 5 or 6 trucks that'll bring up one round, they turn around, they call it turn and burn. They'll go back, get the next ones, and then in the afternoon, they set the rest of the box culvert. So this will be probably a good week of setting this box culvert.
So here's where I'm going with this,
So,
is that if they manufacture it and we pay for it, and it's sitting on their lot, what ensures that the product remains ours? This, I'm looking at my attorney, because I know for a fact in the past, the DOT has lost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars through contracts exactly like this. All of a sudden, the company closes, things are either held with liens or whatever. So we've got a product we paid for sitting on their site with no legal claim to it. So what ensures us that, I'd bill us right away. They're not gonna sit on
Right.
$3 million worth of product, no way. So we'll pay and it will sit, you get my question. So what's protecting us from that?
well, we don't pay for the box until it leaves their yard.
So they're gonna sit on $3 million worth of product for us. Okay, well, that's awesome, good for them.
As soon as,
Terrible
that's the
business plan,
invoice
but-
when it leaves the yard.
Okay.
So, which
And then
won't
you'll
be till
notice
next year, so it'll
there's
come out
also
of,
a $100,000
Sorry.
fuel surcharge as well, that's variable
yeah,
based on the pricing of fuel when they deliver it. It's probably, I'm
that's,
hard pressed, I think it's gonna go down,
right, that's,
or up, I mean, we'll see, but, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we kinda are where we are, but it's
yeah.
crazy, $3 million, good for them.
Any other questions for Tom? If not, Mr. Capitan, Commissioner Capitan, you have a motion.
My motion is still intact.
Yeah.
Did Tom suggest that we qualify the motion?
I think he did.
Assuming
just-
the other contract comes through at this price.
Yes,
Right.
the other document, we don't have that, I believe. The document for signature for Tara, when that arrives.
So would you like to adjust
My
your motion?
motion was to authorize chairperson to sign the purchase orders and quotes from Old Castle Infrastructure, Inc. and Fortera Pipe and Precast.
On receipt of the signed documents.
What would be the amendment?
Yeah.
That's not in the
It
part of
should
the
be.
motion, but
It
yeah, that,
should be.
It has to be.
yep.
All right,
Yeah.
so I've got a motion that, everything on here plus, once we receive the quote, that's consistent with the information provided. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Peterson?
Chairman, I hope our engineers are right.
I hope so
I'm
too.
gonna vote, it's a $500,000, I gamble a lot, I have a problem with gambling.
This should be no problem for you then,
It's
right?
$500,000 is a big number.
It is, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Leaving you in Benson, so here we go.
All right.
All right, any other discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Steen,
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling,
Yes.
Commissioner Brightling.
Yes.
Motion passes. On to item number 4, update on utilities and CAS 17, right-of-way, our ReadiTech. Tom?
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So back in 2021, ReadiTech utility company approached Cass County to install some of their services into county road ditches. Basically started from the western part of the county, making their way through Castleton and down through West Fargo and into the Horace area. We met with them and kind of discussed the way forward. And everything seemed to be going okay, I guess, until we kind of got by the Horace area, and it seemed like we were it wasn't quite the same as the original permit. So then we had meetings with the utility, and basically we called a timeout. And since then, we worked with the utility company, and we had a third-party engineering firm inspector to basically the area from between 52nd Avenue South on Cheyenne Street down to 88th Avenue was the area of concern. We tried to get that all done last fall, but it was dry until you start working the ditches, and it starts raining, and you have all these problems of trying to get things finished. So we weren't able to finish it last fall, but but now the spring it's basically complete, and we're satisfied with all the work. And we're basically ready that the permit has been signed, I guess, but just to sign off on the permit that we do approve to basically close the permit out. And then I guess other than that, I guess, in the suggested motion is to authorize the Cass County State's Attorney to stipulate the dismissal of the Dickey Rural Network / ReadiTech's administrative appeal, I guess. So basically, as far as we're concerned, it's all okay. And the way forward, maybe some lessons learned that we maybe want to, on these larger ones, we might want to have someone out there more full-time, or have that part of the permit to maybe review these, because it gets to be a lot of work to go out and track this work when it's being done, I guess. So, but we are working on revising our permit here over the winter, and that needs to be done.
Lessons learned.
Yes, so.
Any questions?
Yeah, so.
Mr. Sherlin?
In a situation like that, would we be able to charge them back if we hired someone? If we provided the person to monitor this and then charge back I'm familiar with another contract we just did on a different board with the railroad. We're being charged back to monitor it.
Yeah. Commissioner Sherling, that is probably our goal for if these larger permits in the future, that we have a stipulation in there that if that inspection work needs to be done, that be at the cost of the utility. So.
Well, I would suggest we make sure we do that.
Yes.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Motion? Commissioner Kapatan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the Cass County Highway Department to sign off and close these permits, acknowledging that Dickey Rural Network / ReadiTech has completed utility activities as spelled out in the permits to install, leave in place, remove, or abandon utilities within the Cass County Highway 17 corridor. In addition, authorize the Cass County State's Attorney to stipulate to the dismissal of Dickey Rural Network / ReadiTech's administrative appeal.
Motion, is there a second? Second. And discussion on the motion. I have one question for Ms. Peters. Are you comfortable with the motion and the direction we're headed?
Mr. Chair, yes, I am.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Passes. On to, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
On to number 5, opioid settlement payment. And Mr. Wilson, is this going to be you or Ms. Peters? We'll save your voice, Robert, I think. Can't hear me. Can you hear me?
I think Ms. Peters is going to
Perfect. All right.
speak.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Mr.
Ms.
Chair,
Peters.
thank you, members of the commission. So in your packet today for this meeting, you have an allocation notice from the Janssen Corporation, that's J&J, one of the defendants in this opioid litigation. The MDL has hired a company called Brown Greer to oversee the payments as they go out over the years. And so this company is handling all these payments. Right now, the settlement with Janssen or Johnson & Johnson is $1.6 million is coming to the state of North Dakota. Cass County is to receive $20,000. And you can see in that spreadsheet that each county has a different allocated percentage and what their payment is going to look like. According to our legal counsel, we should be receiving 2 payments yet this year, and we should get 1 additional payment each year for the next 9 years from Janssen. The distributions she thought would start around August 19th, and they'll kind of trickle in. There's a lot of them, so it's not all going to happen in a day, but I expect that they will trickle in here soon. Just to give you like an overall big picture here, this defendant, Janssen, is one of 8, maybe 9, if you consider the Purdue bankruptcy. We've settled with Janssen, of course. This is the allocation you have in front of you. We've settled with 3 other companies, and we will be getting a spreadsheet very similar to the one that you have in front of you from those 3 defendants as well. And those three, the amounts of those settlements combined is $21 billion over 18 years. So you can see we're going to be getting in payments over a very long period of time. And we don't know what the payments from those will be, but we'll be getting an allocation spreadsheet like you have in front of you for these for this first one. There's 4 other defendants that we have not settled with, but we anticipate that we will. So 4 that we have, 4 that we haven't, and then there's the Purdue bankruptcy. We will be getting some settlement out of that, but that's a little different animal, and that's all still kind of in the negotiation stage right now. So that's kind of the big picture here, and that's the buckets of money that's going to be coming in. When I first read this, it looked like the county still had to approve this allocation distribution. In talking to our legal counsel on this, Roxana Pierce, she indicated that the county has already done that, and that right now we have a few action items. One is we need to register. There was a link sent to Mr. Wilson that we set up an account and register with this company, Brown Greer, and we get set up to receive those payments. We have to set up a fund from the county and label it the Opioid Abatement Fund, because those funds have to be separate from any other funds that we have. We have to keep it in a separate account. The county has to appoint a committee to make decisions about how we're going to spend this money. And it was suggested to me that it would be like 2 or 3 people. I think we can make it whatever, or you folks can make it whatever you'd like. But there has to be a committee that has a written plan or some sort of a written outline of how the funds are going to be spent. And then the committee is going to make decisions on how that money is spent. Those are kind of the action items that we have in front of us right now. The main thing right now is to register and to get that fund set up, because the money is going to start coming in, and we have to have a receiving spot for it to go. I have attempted to contact the Association of Counties today because I know they've been very actively involved in this litigation. I was unable to get in contact with anybody there. I did speak with someone at the Attorney General's office, Peril Grossman, just before I came down here today. And they don't have their fund set up, but they're working on that too. So I think everybody's kind of working through this process, and everyone is kind of where we are. We're looking for the Attorney General's office maybe and the Association of Counties to give us some direction on how we go about setting up this committee, or what other people are going to be doing around the state. But that's kind of where we are right now on it. So I'd gladly entertain any questions or
I'm going to start out because I was kind of involved with this. So this distributor settlement agreement, North Dakota has instructed the directing administrator to calculate the interstate allocations pursuant to the national default. Is that what so that's going to be for every one of those funds?
yes.
Every one of those settlements?
Yes, there is yes, Mr. Chair, there is an allocation default that is what you have in front of you in this spreadsheet. So my understanding is it's the percentages, and then whatever money comes in just gets allocated according to those percentages. And every settlement that comes in is just going to go through that calculation.
Basically 85% to the state, the other 15% to all of the, we had a lot of discussion on this at one point, and I thought that they were going to challenge that. I thought our group was going to challenge that. Did I miss something along the way?
I guess I'm not,
Commissioner Peterson, maybe you got some thoughts.
Yeah, so no. This came from the late Wayne Stenjum regarding to how this thing was going to be enforced. It wanted, basically, and I'm oversimplifying this, it's to what degree we wanted to resist Mr. Stenjum's view on this, and then we would then, I can't think of the, circumvent's the wrong word, but basically, the state looked down upon us and said, this is the way it's going to be if you want to fight us, cool, but don't fight us. And we could have, pulled ourselves out of this somehow, but the reality was, based on what I think the judges said, if you fight it, you could A, get nothing, and then B, the formula will get even worse for you. So Wayne could have fought it, Mr. Stenjum could have fought it, but chose not to.
Some states did, I think.
Yeah, because
Minnesota said, no, we need more going to local. Yep.
get $1 million. Slope County gets 100. They'll form a committee to allocate $100. And again, it's not criticism of anyone in this room.
$100.
This got, and this is the foolishness we sort of talked about when this thing first happened was, if the dollars are so small, it's going to cost us more to administer the dollars. And if you look at your spreadsheet, you members, you're seeing like Slope's $100, Billings, I think I looked at Billings too, or Marsh, $100, $117. It's laughable. This was never supposed to be meant this way. That $1 million is not going to go to the state hospital. $1 million is not going to go to the state pen. It's not going to be distributed by Highway Patrol. It's going to slap in the general fund, and they'll weasel some way to do something with it. And it's not going to be allocated.
The state has to come up with a plan as well, does it not?
They better.
Mr. Chair, yes, they do. They have to form a committee and do all those things too. This is all part of the settlement agreement, that the committees be formed and that there be a separate fund for it and that there's a plan.
Are there restrictions for uses of the funds at all in this settlement?
Yes, there are. It has to be used for opioid abatement. So the settlement that they expect to come out of Purdue is going to be the most restrictive dollars, the restrictive use of it. The other funds, the allowed use is a little bit less restrictive, but it all has to be used toward opioid abatement. So whatever that looks like. And
Exactly.
Mr. Grossman sent me a document just before I came down here, and there's kind of some general guidelines on what it can be used for, but that's one of the things that I'll have to sit down and sort that out and make sure that we know what it can be used for and what it can't be used for, I guess, is probably a bigger question.
All right. Any more questions, Commissioner Brightline?
I think we've already authorized this process by motion in the past.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes, but do we have to have a motion to create a fund?
Right.
For accounting,
It's a
legal
separate
team.
motion today,
Yep.
right?
So this is all chugging receipt of money, but we have to then say, make a motion to create the fund to put this in and then form a committee. Maybe, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion if you want me to.
There's just a question. Would it make sense for, before we jump to this, and I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it. We've got two other entities within Cass County are receiving funds, Fargo and West Fargo. Would it make sense to try to form a committee that combines all those? Because I think it allows you to do that, or to make best use of those funds. I mean, that's an allowable action, I think, by any of the recipients. Now, I don't know how open anybody would be to that, but would it be something worth pursuing? And I don't know the time frame when we have to make that decision, or if we have the discussion, or
Mr.
Commissioner, yeah, Ms. Peters.
I do have a call into Roxana to ask her that question. Just
Okay.
when do we have to have this committee formed and when do we have to have our plan in place?
Okay.
And I'm waiting to hear back, but that's, once we get the fund set up and we can receive those dollars, then I think we can talk about what that committee is going to look like. Or if we want to work in collaboration with another political subdivision, I've seen nothing that would prohibit anything like that from happening if we had some joint effort of some
Right.
sort. that we
It
wanted
seems,
to look
go
at.
back to Commissioner Peterson's earlier point, it seems silly we're gonna have three committees to manage a total of about $30,000.
50K total, between the 50K between the three of us. And I'm not looking, I can't imagine Castleton is on this list anywhere.
It's not as Fargo, West
So it's
Fargo,
Fargo,
and
West
Cass
Fargo,
County.
Cass, so it's 50 grand total. Maybe a little bit more.
Well, annual payments are gonna be, 28. Okay.
Then West Fargo's
Yeah.
4, so 52, point,
50,000, right. Yes, sir.
I think it's a great idea to get with our friends in Fargo and West Fargo, create one committee and be done with this. Because it's gonna cost us more to administer the committee than,
One thought I might have is, we always have needs for medical in the jail. And there, I don't know what counts as opioid mitigation, but it seems to me that'd be put to good use there if we have whatever we need.
or Narcan and City of Fargo has counseling programs. We have areas, but just having, you said it perfectly, having 3 separate committees to administer this just isn't, it's not doing it justice.
Or Sterling.
So Ms. Peters, would we have to have, could we have one committee from all 3 jurisdictions and 3 separate funds? Or would you need one fund? I'm just trying to think of how the other 2 groups might feel about it if they wanted to keep theirs separate.
Yes, Commissioner Sherling, my understanding is that each political subdivision has to have a separate fund, so we're not commingling money. So I don't think that means that we can't spend the money on the same
I
thing.
think you can commingle the money, Ms. Peters, on number 4, reallocate payment. This says if you wish to reallocate any portion of the allocation to another participating subdivision or the abatement accounts fund, you may do so. So I think if we had all 3 political subdivisions deciding which political subdivision should do that, the other 2 would have to reallocate their funds to that political subdivision. So I think you can do that.
I can certainly confirm that and
Yep.
make sure that's.
Which would make more sense than having 3 committees. I mean,
Yeah, I'm talking about one committee, but just.
but if you have one fund, if each political subdivision receives the funds, then there are gonna have to be 3 committees. Because that's the requirement for the recipient, to have a committee and a fund and a plan. But it'd be much easier to say, agree on which recipient you can combine all those funds to. I believe that's what that language says anyway. And have one fund and have a committee of 3. You know who that would be, 1, 2, 3. Figure out what to do with those funds. If you can do that. Commissioner Brightling.
We have different timelines for establishing the fund and the others. The establishing the fund is going to be distributed yet this month. In part. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I'm being told
So
by
what we
Roxanne.
need is a motion to establish or authorize our finance director to establish a fund to receive those monies. Now, we can always get together on a joint powers agreement with the city of Fargo and West Fargo to do the committee work later on.
Mr. Wilson, you have your hand up. You're so silent out there. Go ahead.
Thank you. One thought. When we first got this agenda forward, I think we were thinking that we really
Robert,
fund
maybe try
set up
turning
and-
your
and
video
have
off.
the
You're really choppy.
Is that better?
We'll see.
Okay. I think with the timeline, the deadline we have here is August 19th. So we could defer this to the next meeting and give us a chance to answer some of the questions that have been raised here. When we first brought this item forward for the consideration at this meeting, at least I thought the question we were looking at was a lot simpler than what we actually have to deal with here. So just a thought, perhaps you defer action on this until the next meeting and we can answer some of the questions that you have raised.
Ms. Peters, would that give us enough time to react to everything we have to get done here?
Mr. Chair, I believe it would. The only thing that is going to happen is starting on the 19th of August, that the funds will start to be distributed. So as long as we have a fund, that we're registered with this organization and we have a fund set up, that's all we would really need to do to receive the monies. And then the money could sit there until we figure out what the committee is going to look like and what the plan is going to look like, I guess.
Mr. Peterson.
How long would it take to create or register with this? Is it filling out a form and emailing in? Or are we going to stress you out or financial people out by giving you, 2 days to create this? You follow my logic in that?
Yes, Commissioner Peterson, I'm confident that we could get it done in
Okay.
that time. I'll take a look at it now, when, in the meantime, and just make sure that it's, it looks like just a link. We go in, we input some information, and then we're in the group.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back down to action. Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, I'm content waiting and letting Mr. Wilson talk to his peers in West Fargo and Fargo to find out what their thoughts on this may be.
Am I hearing a motion to table action?
That's commentary because I haven't.
I would move to table.
Second.
Okay, enough commentary, I guess. I've got a motion and a second to table action until we've had appropriate amount of time to communicate with our other political subdivisions. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner
I
Sherling?
guess I didn't have to do that, but I will.
Yes.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Caputin?
Yes.
Passes. Thanks, everybody. Moving on to wage supplement for Fargo County Public Health Jail Medical Staff. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just for a connectivity purposes, I'm going to leave my camera off here and try and keep the audio quality better. This is a item that was raised in some discussions last week, included myself, Ms. Fleming from Fargo Cast Public Health, Sheriff Johnner, Captain Frobig, that you'll recall that in the past we've had a number of challenges having the right people in the right spots in jail medical and getting the provision of services taken care of in an orderly and efficient manner. I've had a number of meetings with several of you and with Fargo Cast Public Health representatives to that end over the last couple of years. At this point now, we really are at a good spot and have had some, as I understand it, some real efficiencies and things are working well. That said, it was brought to my attention that some of the people that are in positions now within jail medical are being actively recruited by other providers, and this was just raised as something that had been discussed previously, probably a year ago, when the last time we had questions about how might we be able to solve the problems that were there at that time. And one of the suggestions, or a question I should say, was would the county want to consider supplementing salaries for jail medical if that were an enticement to recruit and retain for jail medical positions. So we've brought that forward for your consideration this afternoon. The information in your packet included both the current pay scales for various jail medical positions within public health that are currently employed there, as well as some information from Gallagher for comparisons of public health salaries. In following up with Ms. Fleming, one of the questions was, were those comparison salaries that we got, were those specific to jail medical or correctional health? So we got some additional, reached back out to Gallagher, got some additional information, and I believe I emailed that out to you separately. I want to say it was Friday evening. So information that really we're bringing forward to you, and the only, I would say the only urgency here is that we have a history of having some challenges of this being I would say, a well-functioning group and unit. And at this point, we've got a good process in place, and this option was raised, and I wanted to bring it forward for your consideration. And I'd be happy to stand by for questions.
So this is Rick, this is Commissioner Steen. Mr. Wilson, do you have like a specific recommendation?
I guess a recommendation would be that was just referencing a discussion that happened previously. I want to say it was maybe a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, and I don't know that it was a formal recommendation at that point, but at that time there was at least a discussion of should the county consider supplementing Fargo Cast's salaries, and so as I've stated in the memo here, just as a point of kicking this discussion off, is would you want to consider supplementing jail medical staff salaries at the tune of 10%. Now that percentage could move if you wanted it to. I've had the conversation with the finance office. Is it work within the budget, or what would the budget ramifications be? Total salaries are about $650,000 for jail medical that county is responsible for reimbursing. So about 10% of that would be roughly $65,000. So that is the really the item that we're bringing forward for your consideration.
Commissioner Sherling.
Thank you. So I don't think I see Captain Froberg online, but I do see Ms. Fleming. I'd like to hear her opinion if this would help in retaining or recruiting jail nursing staff, in her opinion.
Ms. Fleming, are you online and able to comment?
I am, thank you. I'm not really sure at this point. I think from what I've heard, that it would meet the demands better than what the city of Fargo is proposing. I know we have a 3.5% market adjustment that the city is proposing in their budget. And again, we have that challenge of, we don't differentiate between a home health nursing and correctional health nursing. So we have no latitude within our system, within the city of Fargo, to give one group a specific bump as compared to someone else, unless we had like separate job descriptions, which we don't have at this time. So from what I've heard from staff, this would be an incentive for them. I know that one of the offers that was received from another agency was significantly above what the city of Fargo is currently providing. And so I know that there is a very tight market with healthcare going on right now. So I think it's not always about money, but I think a lot of it right now is about money with the inflation and everything else that's going on. So I do think that there is some merit in exploring this if you are looking towards retaining staff.
Thank you. So I guess the only other comment I would have is that, this isn't a home health nurse. We had a correctional officer that was brutally attacked this weekend. it takes a special person to work in the jail, and I think it would be appropriate to have a 10% pay increase over other nursing staff.
Ms. Fleming, you commented on a couple of things, and I don't disagree with Commissioner Sherling at all, but you said you don't have this set up right now. Would it be possible for the city of Fargo to identify, I don't want to call it hazard pay, but special pay, like you have like on-call pay or whatever you might have otherwise in their system, to identify the times that individuals work within the jail for someone to designate that on their time card, or appropriate methodology to provide for the differential?
Perhaps, but I think what we
I'm
have
gonna add
to
to
look
my
at.
comment, do you have like holiday pay? Is there a differential for holiday pay, for example?
Yes.
Okay.
The thing is, within nursing, we also have nurses that go out into the home that are also going into an environment that they aren't aware what's going to happen. There's different hazards when you look at different positions. So we haven't broken down each area as to those specific hazards in the past. And so it would take that would take a village, I think, to kind of figure that out as far as what people's perceptions are and hazards are, which was, I think, one of the benefits of having the county explore that, to kind of give that input as far as compensating for the challenges within that environment. So we could work towards it. I just think that would take a little bit to kind of fish that out.
Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's exactly what I recommended before, and I stand with now. An arbitrary number I struggle with. If we had some validation from our friends at Gallagher saying, not all, go to Animal Farm, right? Not all animals are equal. In this particular case, not all animals are equal. We've got a differentiation between risk and stress and possible frustrations on a daily basis, and I think it's more than prudent to ask our friends at Gallagher to do this. And I swear we had some correspondence, and I can't find it here, where they came back to us. Maybe this is commentary from Mr. Wilson, but I thought they came back to us and said it would take a separate survey to do that. I just can't find it here.
Mr. Wilson, do you have anything to add to that? Because I thought you had some additional information that you sent out on Friday.
Yeah, and to Commissioner Peterson's point, you're right. The additional information that Gallagher did send out late Friday included some public health salaries that included jail and correctional positions, but not exclusively. So it was a little bit commingled, and they said if we were looking strictly for apples to apples of jail, medical, correctional, then that would require a unique salary survey.
And this is Desi. I'll add to that too. I mean, typically public health across the state does not do the type of correctional health nursing that we do in Cass County. So they have public health nurses that may go in and do a screening or may go in and do assessment. They don't have their offices there. So you'd be comparing more to a state penitentiary or somewhere like that to actually get, correctional health. So I think it is kind of hard to do the comparison, at some point.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so I'm not supportive of this, but I am adamantly, vehemently supportive of a salary survey with a proper job description. And then we'd share that with if we do find a massive strain between what the results from Gallagher finds and the compensation we're getting, we then advocate to our friends in the metro area that we need to deviate from this, and here's our rationale behind it.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Peterson. We've got two hurdles here. One would be the salary survey that we can rely upon, so we can hang our hat on something and indicate why we're doing what we're doing. The second one is if we do come up with an idea that there should be a differential, would the city be willing to put a differential into their system? I mean, those are two separate questions, and basically the responsibility still is going to fall on Mr. Wilson, I think, to get this done. So I'm not sure. I would easily go with 10%. Don't know if that's the right number to do, but it would cover something. My thought on this, though, is to the commission, so we're going to be trying to approve the budget, next item on the agenda, and we don't have any placeholder for any type of differential pay in the budget. And if we provide for something in the budget, doesn't mean we're going to spend it, but it provides us that opportunity to say, hey, we did put something in here, and here's what it is. Now, the other side of that is, of course, any commission can basically come back and amend the budget at an appropriate time if they decide they want to do that. So that's an option for the commission to discuss at this point, what they think should happen. Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like what Commissioner Sherling had stated about a hazardous duty pay or whatever for the people in jail and the nurses and that type of thing. And we don't have that in the budget right now, is that correct?
As far as I know, we do not.
And is that something that could be added at a later date, even though we approve everything now?
Could be. It's just like when we have to do any other budget adjustment, going forward, we sit down and here's something that we're gonna need to do, and we need to adjust the budget if we know there's an expenditure coming up that is not budgeted for, so that's possible. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It just doesn't change our mills. I mean, this isn't big enough to worry about a mill change, I don't think. I think that you probably did run a fiscal note, or Commissioner Peterson, probably 70,000, somewhere in that range. I'm guessing, okay. So it's not big enough to worry about changing our mill levy, I don't believe. Commissioner Peterson.
The greater discussion is going to be with our friends in the city of Fargo, should our salary survey come back and be exponentially different than what we have provided. It's not the fiscal battle, it's the political battle to pay our team. There you go.
Shirley.
Just, a couple of years ago, we did have some real challenges in keeping the jail medical staff where it needed to be. There was I think leaves of absence, one for military and one for something else. And it just really gets to be expensive and a potential liability, because then you have jail staff passing meds and, there's just, we don't want to get back into that situation again. We're in a good spot now, so we need to make sure that we are being nimble enough to, make sure people are adequately compensated. And, as Ms. Fleming mentioned, the city of Fargo is looking at a 3.5% inflation increase this year, which, probably isn't going to cover it. And so, if people start looking elsewhere, they often do when they have an opportunity to reflect on their salary increase for the year. So we just want to make sure that we're being proactive. So I would certainly be supportive of having Gallagher take a good look at this and make sure that what we're compensating people is adequate. I'd also look at see what the state hospital is providing. I would think that would be something that would be comparable as well. Although we also have to remember that living in Cass County can be much more expensive than living in other parts of the state.
So what I'm hearing is, not necessarily it's an action item, but it could be a consensus at this point to go through and get the Gallagher, additional information from Gallagher, and at the same time pursue, would the city consider adding a differential pay if we're able to do that? And then basically send the message, we're looking at doing this, we just don't know how much it's going to be, or if we can with regard to the city. I mean, that'd be my thought on that. And at least we're sending the right message if we get the correct information. That's not a motion, but I just want to make sure we're understanding what we're trying to do here. If there's a consensus with that, that'd be great. I don't see any heads nodding no. Commissioner Brightman?
This is Desi. Can I just add a comment too? I'm not really sure what since the jail is kind of 100%, it's kind of a fee for service that, the city provides and gets reimbursement back. I'm not sure with the city adding hazard pay, how that would impact and make the situation.
That's what we're considering, Desi. We would have to increase our budget if this was all approved, that the county would have to increase its budget for the contract pay amount. It gets paid as a differential to the nursing staff.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So the city would be whole. And the county would pick up the differential pay in the contract.
And from that perspective, so our budget has already been submitted. So that would not be something probably that would happen anytime soon.
Well, they're no different than the county. They can make budget adjustments as needed if it's a good reason to do it.
Okay.
They can do that, so.
Mr. Chair, this is Robert. I think I'm hearing I think I'm hearing the direction to reach out to Gallagher and get the process for the salary survey underway. Is that correct?
That's what I've heard so far. Plus, before we close that up, Tanner, you've got your hand raised. I'm sorry, I missed that earlier.
That's okay. I just wanted to ask, I know my staff has been very interested in this, and I just, coming forward, a lot of them have been leaning on this, and a lot of them have actually been debating on the decision today if they're going to stay with me or not. So I don't know what to bring forward to them.
Well, here, I would suggest this, that the county is definitely interested in providing some type of differential pay for working in the jail compared to what they're currently making if they worked in another position. Community health, we have two items we have to get to. We have to get some number to hang our hat on. We're assuming there is a number, some type of differential for correctional pay. We don't know what that is, but we have to figure that out. And the other one, would the city be open to creating a differential pay for correctional nursing positions? So even if we decided to do something, doesn't mean the city would go along with that, but we're hoping that we're believing they would if it was meant keeping staff in position and helping keeping the jail staffed appropriately with nursing, but I can't speak for the city. So that's where we're at. So that's why I want to make sure, Tanner, we send the message, we want to do this, we just don't have the information. We would easily, I'll say easily because I may not be here, but we'd be able to definitely adjust the budget going forward if this seemed appropriate, because the numbers we're talking about, they're by no means a budget breaker for the county or the city, and so we can get that accomplished. But we can't just say, here's the percentage, here's what we're going to do. We've got too many open-ended questions on that. But the intent is we would like to do this.
Thank you very much. I just hope it comes in time.
So do I. Appreciate that. Any other questions? I don't recall if this was an action item or not.
Can be, but.
What's that?
Can be.
It can be, okay. So the issue was, I think, Mr. Wilson, you probably heard the discussion. So I'm not sure we have to take any action on this whatsoever. And it really wasn't a motion presented to the commission. So I think you've heard the discussion. Go forward and see what you can find out for us. It'd be great if you could find out something by the next meeting.
I will do my best, and Gallagher has been very responsive lately. We've had good turnaround, so I'll hope that trend will continue.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on that item? If not, we will move on to item 7, preliminary budget approval. And I've got Brandy here and Robert here, and just maybe from my perspective, just bring everybody up to speed. We approved a preliminary budget with two different scenarios. One was a 4% COLA, one was with a 5% COLA. We're waiting on that before we approve a final budget. There's also an outstanding question on health insurance, where we're at with that. And if I missed anything, any outstanding issues, Brandy, other than those two? Okay, with that, I would like Brandy to talk a little bit about health insurance and where we're at with that. And unless anything's transpired in the half hour before the meeting, I pretty much know what Brandy has to say, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the introduction on the budget. That is correct for the most part. You have two budgets in front of you, one with 4%, one with 5% COLA rates. In regards to healthcare, since our budget hearing concluded last week, we did receive the most recent renewal proposal from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota. The proposal suggests increasing premiums 12% over last year's proposal, which does equate to approximately 24.5% over the actual premium that for the actual 2022 premiums that were currently implemented. So in the past, the county has utilized these proposals, the health fund balances, and year-to-date actual expenses in determining the actual premiums for the following year. That means that the 2022 actual premiums differed from the proposed 2022 rates as prescribed from Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Dakota. So an 8% revenue increase over the 2022 budgeted revenue was included in your preliminary budget. And this increase is expected to cover any proposed premium increases. Similarly, the preliminary budget that's before you today includes an 8% increase in the expenses related to healthcare. But since reviewing the Blue Cross Blue Shield proposal, it does appear that that 8% increase in health expenses is likely too low. For example, the stop loss premium is projected to be approximately $100,000 higher than the preliminary budget. Therefore, I was going to recommend that healthcare expenses be budgeted at 12% rather than 8%. And this recommendation would result in an additional $258,000 of cost, which would impact the fund balance, bringing it down by that amount. But the end health fund will remain within the 25 to 50, or it will still exceed the 25 to 50% threshold as set by policy, and it would remain approximately 62% of previous year expenses.
So the first item then, thank you, Brandy, very much. I think you did a much better job than I could have. And the first item there is where are we satisfied with where the health insurance fund will land based upon the information we currently have. So it's a reduction in total. The health insurance fund is reduced from our estimated balance at end of 2022 to the estimated balance of 2023 by approximately how much?
An additional $258,000.
On top of the original, which, and so in total?
151.
About 400,000, thereabouts.
Yes, 409.
400,000, so the fund balance based upon premium increase at 8%, projecting the expense increase at 12%, drops our fund balance about 400,000, still then lands at 61% at the end of 23, which is well above our window. It does result in a decrease, which I think if you look at the last 4 years, I think the intent was to bring that down somewhat. At one point in time, that balance, the fund balance was significant.
111% of expenditures.
111% of prior year expenditures, so that's pretty significant. So that issue is first down the table for the commissioners to see if we're satisfied with that small adjustment in the health insurance fund. It'll be an increasing expenses of about $250,000 approximately. Questions for Brandy? Thoughts, questions there? So basically there's a proposition for a motion. Or just leave it the way it is. We know it's probably not correct. We can do that. Commissioner Peterson.
Yeah, I think we need to adjust our fund balance to 12% to match what Blue Cross was telling us, and make that motion to adjust accordingly. The health insurance line item.
Second.
Yep, I understand what you're saying. So that's the revenue side.
Correct. Unfortunately.
And that 12% is, go ahead, Brandy.
The 8% increase that's in the budget before you is on top of the proposed budget, or the accepted budget from 2022. So an additional 12% of revenue would exceed, I guess, the 25%.
I don't think additional, I think you were suggesting to 12%.
Right. 12%, yeah.
Raising it 4%. So we were at 8 proposed during all our discussions last week. We gave advice saying, we suggest you go to 12. So I'm suggesting we match that 12. So we're going up 4.
That puts us at, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we're going to end up with a fund balance then.
It would be consistent with
what we
what
just
is
talked
in the
about.
budget, because it would go up 12%.
Expense.
Well,
See, I'm thinking we're talking two different things again. We got expenses and we got revenues. I think revenues are still sitting at 8% over last year, correct? But that would actually result in a 12% increase in premiums, correct? It gets complicated because we got 3 different sets of numbers here, guys. So I'll let Brandy do her thing and.
While she's typing, just to clarify, she has an answer.
Oh, so it would result in a deficit of $159,837, which is, I believe, $9,000 higher than an 8%.
So long as we understand what the motion is, Commissioner
And
Peterson.
Mr. just one more thing. My intent is exactly to raise it because I'm not comfortable seeing this fund balance be whittled down by the additional 4. So if we don't act, so be it, but then the remaining fund balance in line item 501 depreciates proportionally. I'm not willing to, I guess, no.
No, could you also, I'm gonna ask you if you could also adjust, that motion also should address the expense adjustments. We need to do that as well.
Yes, that's implicit in that because I'm not comfortable seeing this thing not collapse, is overstating it, going down more than the expenses at this point. If it was 1%, cool, but a 4% swing, meaning 50% greater than anticipated, that's too great a margin for us to risk. And the last thing I want to have is this health insurance fund come short and in it, knock on some sort of wood here. It never will, but golly, if we have a bad year and we're short.
I think part of this too is, so I very similar discussion that Brandy and I have had on that. And I think the issue here might be, there's something out there perhaps that Blue Cross Blue Shield knows that we don't know when they're suggesting these type of increases. I think we haven't had the time to communicate with them because that meeting hasn't occurred. So by the time it comes down to setting premiums, we'll have a much better idea what their discussion is with regard to why are the expenses going up so much. And then we can adjust accordingly. If we can't go up, we can certainly come down, in general. So I think that's a valid, approach to take to this, because we're not setting premiums at this meeting, but we are setting expectations as far as expenses. So, okay. So there's a motion. I think there was a second on that. Mr. Schilling seconded that. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schirling?
Yes.
Motion passes. Now, I don't know if you've rolled all the numbers back? Okay. Maybe, so you know what the bottom line is?
Including the new motion?
Including the new motion into the overall budget.
No, that has not been tallied at the moment.
We have an approximate. I'll mention it. Is it going to affect our mill levy? It's about 1/10 of a mill. Commissioner Peterson?
Maybe. Right, we could choose to reduce our general fund in lieu of our mill levy. So those dollars could come from somewhere else within this. I'm looking at page 3, which is the full spreadsheet. So I focused on our insurance, our internal service funds, health insurance fund. That line item is where I'm getting my baseline of making the motion I did. But if we just carry that through, and this is what Ms. Rodriguez is working on, that would impact our final mill levy proportionally if we want to.
Total, possibly, yeah, but it's just.
But if you want to take that money from our general fund, anywhere, somewhere else, then you could not have an impact, but I contend it's going to impact our mill levy.
Okay, so our general fund is impacted. So we're getting ahead of where we need to be because there's too much buried material here. So we've identified one item which is not in the general fund, and that's the health insurance reserve fund. Okay, with that, we reduced the health insurance reserve fund in the final budget to what? It was 4727234. We have that number?
I can give you an approximate amount, but considering that some of the health care expenses are based on salaries, and salaries differ between the two different COLA proposals,
Is it truly, I'm asking this question, is it truly based on salaries, though? It's based on people. So it shouldn't change that. Because you calc that separately from other benefits, correct?
Your health benefits are or the costs of them are determined by the employee's selections, regardless of their pay.
Regardless of the pay.
They still pay the same amount and we still pay the same.
So it shouldn't have an impact.
then I would calculate approximately, the fund balance would be, where was it at? 4727 at the 5% COLA, would be 4719,155 approximately.
4719 on the health insurance fund. So you said about an $8,000 or $9,000 impact. Okay, so we only have about an $8,000 or $9,000 impact based upon the changes we just approved on the health insurance fund. Commissioner Shirley?
Just curious, help me to understand, can our dental insurance fund offset any of this? Because it's pretty robust compared to other years.
It is. I'll answer that because we looked at that. Our dental insurance fund is about 117% of expenditures. That's the balance. And we did not raise dental premiums last year, correct? We actually decreased them last year. I think the budget indicates we're just holding them at the same level. So we didn't do anything with those. Commissioner Peterson.
I don't think we can push those dollars over because they're not commingled money if you picked a certain plan. The reason it's so robust is COVID. So all the clinics shut down for a calendar year. So those of us with cleanings and everything we had to have done just paid our insurance and had nowhere to go. So that's why we've always kept it at 75, 80%. I mean, maybe Sarah knows better than I do. But it's never been this big, but we had 1 year of 9 months of no dentists. So that's how we got where we got.
So I would suggest the dental fund is what it is.
Yeah, it's because you can't, the money's not.
So that's, again, it's not a huge, I mean, we've gone down this last year, we decreased the fund balance by over 100,000, 150,000. Year before that, it came down, year before that, it came, I mean, it's been a general decline to get closer to that 50% mark, not in, I think intentionally by Mike over a period of time. And so we talked about, Brandy and I talked about the slope. It's easy to come down, but you gotta monitor the slope so it's not coming down too fast, because then the uptake is gonna be too hard. So you keep that slope coming down slightly and live with that. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. So other questions, Commissioner Peterson?
Yeah, and that's a near-term thing. So we've had a younger population influx. So our medical claims have gone down. But whatever commissions sit here, 10 or 15 years from now, that's where you'll have to pay attention, because you will need to, not only because we'll have increasing costs, but as our population probably sticks around, hopefully sticks around, and ages and has all those blown out tendons and things, next thing you know.
So, besides the general fund and the COLA issue, are we comfortable with the rest of the funds? Any other changes, Brandy, that your group has come up with? Nope.
No further changes.
Nothing from Sarah. So with that, hearing nothing from the commission, we will go back to the general fund and COLA. COLA fund affects more than just the general fund, but that's the primary impact. So with that, I think you provided two budgets, one with the COLA of 4%, one with a COLA of 5%. So now we need to have some discussion on that. Ricketts, I tell you. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I just may add a little bit of context to that discussion, just a reminder that we calculated previously that the effective cost of the difference of the 1% of the COLA increase is equivalent to approximately $265,000.
So the impact of 4 to 5 is approximately $265,000. Thank you. So before us, we've got two options, option attachment A or option A with the 4%, and I'm assuming attachment B is with the 5%. Commissioner Brightling.
In the charts that we have in front of us, there's a percent increase column. If we subtract, for example, on the cover sheet, 5%, does that mean the average step increase is at 3.7?
Plus, I think 2 or 4 FTEs?
Well, there are
You've got
five new
FTEs.
employees, 4.5.
You've got FTEs in there as well.
Yeah.
That's including the 8.7% as well. The FTEs are in the 8.7 as well as the COLA and the steps.
They are.
Yes, because this is the net number of 8.7% over last year.
That's over last year. It has nothing to do with an average step increase.
Yeah, the steps are in there. The steps are in the 8.7%, as are the additional FTEs, as is the COLA. So you have 3 components.
Are the step increases calculated on each individual employee?
Yes, they are. So it's not really an average.
For budget purposes, they're counted individually?
Yes, they're actually identified individually.
That was my concern.
Yep, no, they're actually identified separately. So that includes everything. And it was at 4.5 FTEs? 5.5?
Yeah.
Whatever, it's somewhere in that range. So, yeah, so it includes the FTEs as well. So, there you go. We've got a decision in front of us.
The other question I had is the gross salary on the 5 and 4 only is about 220,000 difference.
Benefits, tax costs, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that's the difference between the 220 and the 265? Right. That's answers my question.
Well, everyone's contemplating. Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess looking at our peers across the region, we're looking at our friends across the river at 3%. We're looking at City of Fargo at 3%, I think. West Fargo is at 3.5, or are they 3 as well?
We're shooting for 3 or 3.5 will be in that ballpark.
I'm struggling with the 5, and I realize, the fiscal impact of this isn't, and especially in the scheme of things, isn't massive. But the reality is, with everyone else at 3, I'm not comfortable going to 5. We also have to calculate, as Commissioner Brightling, we all know, we calculate steps in as well. It's not as though it's just this cost of living. There's only a couple people, maybe a couple people more right now. They're going to be capped of our 450 less our social services friends at 160 across the street. So about 300 people that are not, 150 not impacted by us. So we'll be curious to find out what the state does with them. But as I said before, I was never comfortable at the 8.5. I'm duly uncomfortable at a 3 or a 2 or something like that. That's failing to acknowledge reality. I'm very comfortable at a 4, less comfortable at a 5. So I'd be at a 4. That's where I stand.
It's not a motion, it's
not
simply
a
discussion. Mr. Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've noticed that the City of Fargo did offer to the mayor 3.5, I think, wasn't it? 3.5, but he's holding on to see what we do and the park board does. The airport's doing the same thing. They're holding at 3.5 to see what everybody else does. I know that the airport and the City of Fargo have offered their heavy equipment operators a 10% increase for heavy equipment operators to prevent the diversion people, because they're begging for heavy equipment operators. And that was retroactive back to June 1st. And now they're anticipating another 10% increase for the same group of people on top of the COLA. So, and if we, even at 5%, we're still averaging down around 3, somewhere in that area over a period of time. So in it, with $265,000 difference between the two, over $139 million budget, I feel comfortable at the 5% myself.
I'm gonna jump in. And if it was just us we're talking about, I could say, well, it's only this. But I do believe that our decision here impacts West Fargo, other districts. What are they gonna do? And I'm thinking about the taxpayer. And I don't know how many taxpayers are getting a 5% increase or a 6% increase. They don't get steps. A lot of our taxpayers don't. That's my concern. Are we setting the stage? So it's, well, the county did this, so we need to go to this. So I don't think if we go to 5, I don't think it'd be one entity out there that's not gonna go to 5, except for Moorhead, who basically did a 3-year contract for 3 years, 3% a year. And that's 3% a year for Moorhead, for all for most of their unions at this point anyway. So my issue is, and you can go both ways on this, the 5% is not that much more, 269,000, whatever it is, that's not that much more per employee either. The 1% isn't. And yeah, it's every dime counts, and every dime counts to the taxpayer. So I'm real hesitant to set the mark and say, well, no, the city of Fargo is going to say this, city of West Fargo is going to say this. I mean, it's just, it's a slippery path. You run down, and 4%, and it's like Commissioner Peterson said, it's not just 4%. Most of our employees also benefit from a step increase, which is another 2 to 3% at least. So it's 7% in a land of, you know, inflation. But anyway, that's my thought. That's not a motion either. That's just discussion. But I'm comfortable with the 4 as well. I think we've done pretty good with that. And hopefully hold our premium cost down to our employees whenever that comes around. We've got a great plan, keep the premium cost down. That's something we can lean back on, I think. So, other thoughts? Commissioner Sherling?
Well, I think that the 3% that I'm hearing that other governmental entities are considering is pretty tight in this environment. But honestly, with the step increases at 4%, we are talking a 7.8% on average raise. And the taxpayers that will be calling me are not getting 7.8% raises. They're not getting 4% raises. You know, I'm totally comfortable with 4. I don't know if we want to consider anything other than 4 or 5. There are numbers in between that. I know we don't have those in front of us. But that is on average a 7.8% raise, and I think that is pretty competitive. You know, that we do want to make sure that that we never wanted to pay more, you know, lead or lag. We wanted to be in the market, and we want to make sure that we don't get out of that. So that would be my only concern, because we are in a very tight market right now. If we did 4 or 5, whatever the number is, would it keep us in the middle of the market and competitive, especially with the private sector?
I'm going to call in Commissioner Brayling here in a second, but also I think, you know, lead or lag, it's a big question we addressed about a year and a half or 2 years ago. We went through the whole market study. We moved a lot of people around to get in within market. So hopefully we're not lagging. I think, you know, in lagging there's obviously a lot of differences in compensation, how it is measured. And one is salary, but there's benefits, there's pension, there's other things. So lead or lag, I don't think it's in the best position of any governmental entity to be the leader in compensation. It's just not how it should be in my book. And I'm sitting here as a county commissioner, but I was also in private practice. I don't think that's where county employees should be as in the lead. They should be somewhere in the middle. And I think that's where we'll end up. But Commissioner Brightling?
I was just gonna mention that a 0.5% increase over and above would be roughly another $130,000.
Your swing here is correct. And the 0.5% decrease would be the same, so we get down to
That's
3.5%. So,
Up or down, either way.
Commissioner Peterson?
Want a motion, Mr. Chair?
Do.
Make a motion for 4% COLA.
Second. Motion for 4% in a second. Discussion on the motion. Discussion on the motion. Before I take a roll, all the conversations here, that more conversation has taken place than just here tonight. We've had our preliminary meetings. We've had a lot of discussion internally with Brandy and where we're at with things in the budget. And I think, I think we're still doing pretty good by our employees. I think the issue that Commissioner Sterling brought up and we all tend to ignore is the step increase. Another 3%, basically on average. Doesn't mean everybody, but almost everybody these days. And it results in about a 7% plus increase. So I think, bear that in mind, I think, when we take action. Commissioner Sherling?
And just would add, we did decide to do a vision insurance this year, offer vision insurance.
And we added vision insurance, correct, where the county will pay the employer, single coverage cost as well.
It's my understanding that we can't go up, we can go down.
On our mill levy. Doesn't mean we can't do other changes, but we can change our mill levy. So, with that COLA motion, any other discussion on that motion? Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
And with that, then we actually go to the budget. We want to talk a little bit about mill levy and where we're at. And I'll leave it, Commissioner Peterson, you might have something to say on that, or are you comfortable with where we're at?
No, I mean,
I'm comfortable with where we're at on the mill. It's gonna be something like 3/4 of a mill decrease or somewhere in that range is where we're sitting. I'm comfortable with that. Commissioner Peterson.
So the struggle is always where you take it from, right? And I think the problem we have is we've committed, the easiest one is always building fund in my mind. We've committed to a massive potential outlay of expenditures. And we may not go through with all of them, but we're certainly looking at all of them. And I contend that I don't know where we would cut it off the top of my head. We talked about this, for the better part of all last week. And again, right now, I'd like to go down another half, but I'm not entirely sure where I can pull it from. My psychological, I wanted to at least have a 1 mil reduction. And I know proportionally that doesn't work, right? Because it's not increase in valuation less the 1 mil, it's not proportional. But at least we're showing our taxpaying neighbors, and ourselves for that matter, some sort of effort. The problem is we have just such a massive expenditure coming forth. And these aren't fun, Ferris wheel projects, right? We're not building barns for cows and happy Ferris wheels and things like that. It's 911, it's a jail addition, it's support for our law enforcement community, and obviously roads and bridges too, but I don't know where we take it from right now. And that's frustrating, but I don't know where.
I think, Commissioner Peterson, I agree with you. I think over the process of the budget process, I think we actually reduced the budget by taking small bits here and there by about 1.5 or 1.6 million, the initial budget that was presented to us. So we did find places to take over a mill out of the budget, and from that perspective, the rest of it, there's not a unnecessary significant increase in FTEs in this budget. And we vetted that time and time again on this budget, and there's just not there. We don't have human services department to take a look at anymore. They do what they do. It's not our, and so it's not our, I won't say it's not our budget issue any longer. So I think we've done what we can there. Mr. Sherling, and then.
I think we've done a very prudent job with trying to keep those property taxes down. But, maybe we didn't hit it this year, Commissioner Peterson, the 1 mil, but part of what we accomplished here is that we're having projects that are going to save us money in the future. And so, you and I are still going to be around here for a while, so hopefully next year.
Unlike some people.
We're not going to, and none of these costs are going down as we're, talking about bridges and highway funds earlier in the day, and all these other building projects that are coming up. The fact that we're going to be able to move quickly on these building projects are going to save taxpayers money down the road. And so that's what I hope future commissions will look at very hard, and, because we should be able to nail down future needs for Cass County this year. And, hopefully there shouldn't be any surprises coming down the road.
Any additional comments? Commissioner Peterson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as a reminder to all of us and those folks listening, we were deficit spending pretty handily last year. So that's the other thing we've made up, is that we are no longer deficit spending to the point of detriment. Not that it would have been bad, but had we carried that through for the next 5 or 10 years, I think we would have all been disappointed where we're at. So getting that number down to the point where we're whittling into our general fund to a reasonable amount rather than something that was accelerated, good, again, to needful expenditures, but still, I think that's a success as well. So there we go.
Other discussion? Any other discussion? So the motion, as I understand it,
54.55.
To approve a budget with a mill levy of 54.55 mils. That was. Oh,
Or second.
Second, okay. All right.
I was simply stating the number.
Gotcha. All right, so it was motion and a second to approve a budget of 54.55 mils. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? We've had plenty. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for everyone's hard work on that, and it's people in this room and a lot of people outside this room. So Sarah, thank you, and Brandy, thank your staff as well. Appreciate that. Oh, I have to mention that? Okay, Brandy, I'll let you just mention that.
The hearing date has been proposed to be set for the final budget, Monday, September 19th of 2022. And this would be a date that needs to be noticed within the forum as per motion.
Okay, that's a suggested motion.
19th. Why have we carried later in the year past? And again, I don't know the answer to that. For some reason, I always thought October.
October is the
Or first.
final date.
So we have hearing then finals.
It'll be our last meeting will be the 19th.
So moved on the 19th.
Motion to set the hearing date on September 19th. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Breitling seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Passes. Again, thanks for everybody. Thanks to everybody for all the work on that. Moving on to item number 8, general election polling locations. Brandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For consideration today is the 2022 general election early voting and election day location plan, consistent with both the 2020 general and 2022 primary elections. We plan to utilize the vote centers for both early voting and election day. Historically, voter turnout for the general election on non-presidential years runs around 84% of our active voters, and that is approximately 93,000 voters, which is the equivalent to 78,000 expected voters for the general election. And between 40 to 50,000 voters, we do expect to plan to attend on election day, November 8th of 2022. Therefore, we've established 5 early voting locations to be scheduled Monday to Friday during the week preceding election day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then 10 vote centers that are scheduled to be open on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, and consistent with counties within North Dakota. Operating hours have been scheduled from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 5 vote centers are set to service the metro area. 6 vote centers are scheduled for the metro area, 4 for the rural. And the finance office will continue to work closely with IT to ensure the vote centers have necessary connectivity requirements and setup plans. One item to notice is consistent with the primary election, we have chosen West Acres Mall again. However, the community corner was sufficient for our early voting. We did find that it would be too small for that amount of people to be coming through on election day. So we have secured the main area in front of Macy's that can accommodate more people to go through. I've included 2 maps of Cass County for your reference. The first map exhibits the early voting location, and the second map contains the election day locations.
And the overhead. Maybe not.
I'm not sure. They weren't submitted at the time of the agenda, so everybody has been given a paper copy.
All right.
I don't need a map, I just have a question.
Really?
Any comment from the folks in western Cass County? I see that Tower City is not included in this list. Nor is Kindred for that matter, so.
Yeah, as far as Tower City, the turnout was substantially lower than what we had thought in the primary. So we decided to focus it more, our areas more on some of the rural areas that were attended more so. Kindred is quite close to Horace, so that was a deciding factor between the two.
Will we reconsider this in a presidential election?
Absolutely. I think that we would reconsider these locations for every single location. My intention for next year is that planning will start, or for the next election, the presidential election, that planning will start in June of next year. So we'll be able to secure some of the sites because we did run into a few different challenges when selecting these sites. Either they were, our ideal sites were booked up for election day, or the venue wasn't willing to host us as an election venue.
And absentee ballots are available for that part of the county, but just to reiterate that Castleton is not in western Cass County, although it might feel like that when you're looking at Moorhead.
And if I may as well, when looking out into western Cass County and rural Cass County, we are limited with the number of areas that we can go to. So yeah, but Tower City, absolutely, we can look at that one again. We were hoping for a bit of a higher turnout in the primary.
Any other questions? The voting center locations. I think we need a motion, correct?
Comment?
Mr. Brightland?
Notice that in Wisconsin, their court system has limited the use of boxes for drop of absentee ballots. Might that have some impact on what we do?
Mail
We only have the one drop box, and that's the one out in front of the courthouse.
Yeah, it's and monitored under video as well, because I know that is some of the conversation in regards to drop boxes.
Any other questions? Or a motion? Commissioner Shirley?
Second.
Second to approve early voting in November general election polling locations, dates, and hours as presented by the Finance Office. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes. Motion passes. On to number 9. Brandy.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For consideration today is the 126th request for eligible costs incurred from May 1st to May 31st in the amount of $1,224,134.73 for local matching share requirements as outlined in House Bill 1020 for the Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Area Flood Risk Management Project.
Any questions? Hearing none, any motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion approved, or made and seconded to approve the reimbursement request 126. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Passes. On to vouchers, Commissioner Sherling.
Yes, I had an opportunity to review the vouchers and move for approval.
A second. And a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Steen?
Yes.
Commissioner Capitan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Passes. With that, we move on to committee reports. I'm going to ask Mr. Wilson first because I know he's going to be really short because he can hardly talk.
I'm going to say no report this afternoon. Thank you.
Perfect. Commissioner Brightling.
I have no report to make.
Mr. Sherling.
MetroCog, we've been meeting and talking about the new transportation, whatever that's called.
Plan? Oh.
It's right up there with social services with all the acronyms. But our new highway plan, funding plan that we're under. Apparently, we need to add some new board members. And one of them will be public transportation, and that is a requirement. The other two board members will be the airport, and there's some conversation about, are we talking Fargo Airport, or are we talking Castleton Airport, or the Moorhead Airport? So there's a little
West Fargo Airport?
little conversation going on about that. So stay tuned, and then also MnDOT and the North Dakota Department of Transportation apparently get a seat at the table. Whether or not any of these are going to be voting members is going to be a question. It's getting to be an awfully big board. So stay tuned.
Anything else?
Oh, that's it.
Ms. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know that this is going to be real welcome news, but I have an update on the K&B Kevin Bifford litigation. We were supposed to have a hearing this Wednesday morning on dueling motions for summary judgment, and one of the attorneys from Minneapolis on the other side can't make it Wednesday, and so that's been continued to September 9th now. So we're out another month. So.
Can't control the courts, right?
No, and I think it was something that couldn't be avoided. But unfortunately, we would like to get in court, but that's not going to happen for a little while here. So that's where we're at. I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Capitan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the NACO conference in Denver along with several other people from our Cass County, and was able to attend several good sessions that I went to. And I also attended the active shooter exercise in Tower City that was held at our last meeting. And that was well received, and I think it was good. It was a very good exercise. And there were a lot of fire departments and ambulance services from all over the western part of the from Castleton on, and from Arthur, and there's probably 10 different fire departments and 10, 11 different ambulance services that were all in attendance. So it was well attended, and I thought it went very well. The reason why our sheriff was not here today, he is at a standoff in Mapleton this afternoon. And I called him to ask him how our deputy was that was the result of a planned attack on him. I guess he is doing better, but he probably sustained an orbital fracture, along with getting beat up pretty bad. But he's doing well. And the next active shooter exercise will be at Central Cass on August 17th. I plan to attend. And that is it.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yep, as Commissioner Capitan stated, we attended our little get-together, National Association of Counties event in Denver. I carpet bombed our EDC director. I carpet bombed some of our department heads with ideas and grants and opportunities. One thing to share, qualified immunity. So qualified immunity is the thing that prevents our officers from being charged from sneezing on someone. I'm overstating that, and lawyers should be laughing right now. But interestingly enough, so when we were in DC for legislative session, we, as a community, I serve on Justice and Public Safety. On Justice and Public Safety, we have representation nationwide. Urban, rural, doesn't matter. When we were in DC for legislative session at the end of February, beginning of March, there was a vote taken by our community to remove qualified immunity. So the Association of Counties would advocate for the removal of qualified immunity. At that session, we had about a 60-40 vote saying, keep qualified immunity, but 40% of the people in that room wanted it gone. That is a stunning number. And luckily we had some people, some left-wing Democrats whose husbands happened to be police officers. That's what turned the crowd. When a couple Democrats stepped up and said, you guys gotta understand, our husbands are police officers. It doesn't allow police just to go out and commit crimes. You're not understanding what it means. The perception of qualified immunity is cops can do whatever they want and they'll never get charged with anything. That's not what it is at all. If a cop breaks the law, a cop gets charged with breaking the law. But the perception is incredibly important to some of these people. So we brought that back when we were in Denver again, and the vote was 25-75. So it was fascinating how between 6 months, 2 meetings of people nationally, it seems as though the ball is moving in the right direction. It could swing, the pendulum could swing back, quickly, but the fact that it's even still being discussed is remarkable, but at least it's being discussed with a bent on the fact that police still can commit crimes. And if they do, they should be charged. And I also sit as, president-elect of Insurance Reserve Board, so I'm going to convey this to my friends on that as well, because clearly that's the fund that it would go to defend and then possibly, finance some sort of a lawsuit. I was also elected president of the Republican County Officials, so that was a shocker. I had some friends of mine, one sitting to my right, that said, I'll show up and vote for you. Well, I said, I'm not cooking the deck on this. If I lose, I lose. I could care less. But I am now the president of the Republicans. So that's kind of neat.
President of what?
National County Republicans. So it's the National Council of Republican County Officials. So all the Republican commissioners, treasurers, auditors all serve on this board, or they can. And the Democrats do an amazing job. So it's kind of the joke is the Democrats have, they have Planned Parenthood and all the usual suspects that fund them, and they have these giant dinners and big lunch celebrations. And we get together over glasses of iced water because we don't have quite the Planned Parenthood bang. So some of us will be looking to change that, not Planned Parenthood, of course, but the equivalent on the opposite side maybe is probably not the right thing to say right now, but I jokingly said big oil, big gas, big ag, all the things that Republicans are known for, and try to help us recruit, help people to show up. And one of the criticisms I had, and so on my county tours, I'm talking about this too, so I talked about it in Denver, the criticism we have as conservatives is that every penny we spend is wasted money. It's all down the toilet. Well, we need to encourage friends like you and attorneys and treasurers, auditors, to show up at these things and participate. It's not a one-way conversation. You need to tell people what you've learned, and you can learn from others. So we need more of us showing up at these things, and I think Cass has done an amazing job of participating not only in NDACO, but the National Association of Counties too. And the more we can reinforce it, not everybody needs to go every year, but once in a while isn't a bad thing. So yeah, I did that, and it was fun. And yeah, I could talk, I'll stop. That's all I have, sir.
All right. Randy.
Thank you. A quick update on our 2021 year-end audit. We were just finalizing the documents with the auditors today, so it looks like it is complete and in time for us to submit for the annual awards that we usually do.
Anything else? I don't have much to relate. Just a couple of things. Strategic planning pre-meeting, which was scheduled for this morning, it needs to be rescheduled, and it needs to be rescheduled prior to the 18th, at least probably sometime before the 18th, so it gives our consultant time to prepare based upon what we share. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Robert really about what the rescheduled time will be, but we'll look, I think, Robert, you suggested perhaps later this week would be one option, and it can be done virtually as was planned with the first one. So, Mr. Wilson, thoughts on that?
Yeah, say either later this week or early next week, one of the two. I will coordinate back.
Of course, you're still trying to play your video, and it's, you know.
We'll get that worked out with folks who are involved and get that either later this week or early next week.
Commissioner Peterson.
Mr. Chairman, if we could make a request early next week, my daughter is one of 9, 11, and 12-year-olds to represent the state of North Dakota down at the University of Minnesota at a swim meet against the core of our nation. So I will be in Minneapolis Wednesday through Sunday watching my daughter swim.
So we can set up for next week, Mr. Wilson. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Turn your video off, buddy.
Yeah. Yes, I heard that early next week.
There you go. Thank you, sir. And then, of course, we still have our strategic planning big meeting scheduled for the 18th. And so hopefully we all can attend that. One thing, I think a number of commissioners will be attending is the diversion channel groundbreaking on August 9th. So we'll be doing that.
Location still to be determined.
You need to bring your own shovels.
Chairs, shovels, champagne. I don't know. haven't heard much yet on that, Dwayne, but thank you.
The last email I got, it says the location, we'll tell you later.
And that's correct.
Okay. And the chair of the diversion would know this, so thank you.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to have shuttles running from the Fargo Dome, and I think the location has been determined, but they're making sure everything's going to work, so we can make the transportation there, because I think there's going to be a lot of people showing up.
That's all I really have to report on. Anything else that somebody forgot to talk about? Hearing none.
Go Team North Dakota.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, no, correspondence. You said there is no correspondence?
No correspondence.
No.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Everybody, thanks for the hard work on the budget stuff to everybody. Appreciate that.